好啦，歡迎大家嚟到香港科學館啦。咁呢一個係科學節嘅活動嚟嘅。咁就今日我哋咧就好榮幸請到Professor 咁咧就嚟呢度咧講下佢嘅一啲對科學發展嘅一啲見解嘅。咁喺開始之先呢，咁都提一提醒你哋啦。咁呢個科學節活動咧係喺呢一個講座獎勵計劃裏邊嘅。咁如果大家咧手頭上咧會揾到一張飛仔，入場嘅時候會揾到張飛仔咧。如果冇咧，完場嘅時候都可以喺出邊咧攞張飛仔嘅。咁呢張飛仔咧裏邊有5個人啦，只要集齊聽完5場講座，集齊5個人咧，可以喺我哋1樓新聞處換領禮品1份嘅。咁呢一個講座咧，我就唔係主持嚟嘅，所以我今日咧比較少講嘢㗎啦。咁就即係留俾啲專家們去討論啦。咁我哋首先咧有請Professor Jolie 咧去介紹講者出場嘅。
大家好，我名係李成業，我係中文大學生命科學學院嘅一個教授。但因為咧今日嘅演講咧係用英文嚟到去進行嘅，所以咧我就會跟住落嚟咧都係用英文嚟到主持今日嘅呢個聚會。Welcome everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a long-time friend, a very, very well-known biologist, a close friend of mine, Professor Peter Ng. Peter Ng is the founding head of the Lee Kong Chian Natural History Museum of the National University of Singapore. And he's also a professor in the Department of Biological Sciences there. He actually has many, many different hats. I just very often wonder how many hours he has in a day. He must have a lot more hours in a day than I do, because he actually has so many, many different important roles. For example, he's the director of the Marine Science and Research Development Program of the National Research Foundation of Singapore, and the chairman of the Environmental Advisory Panel for the new zoological gardens to be built by the government and managed by the Temasek Enterprises, just among the many, many roles that he's been playing in Singapore and also worldwide. I think the more important part that I should introduce about Peter is the fact that he's such a passionate scientist, because today's topic is about passion and intelligence. And I think for someone to have achieved that much while still so young, it must be a very, very good reflection of both being passionate and as well as intelligent. Well, if I actually read out what he has done so far in terms of scientific achievements, you'll be really, really amazed. Well, Peter has worked in over 25 countries and had led hundreds of expeditions throughout the world, particularly Asia. And he has been involved in the discovery of more than 500 new species of animals, particularly fish and crustaceans. By the way, Peter is the world authority on crab taxonomy and ecology. And he has produced more than 900 technical and scientific papers. Well, when I look at that number, I just felt, well, how many hours does he have? And well over 25 books. And so today we are very, very lucky to have the opportunity to listen to a world expert, a renowned scientist, actually talking about not so much just science, but actually what science is about, doing science is about. His topic today is passion versus intelligence in science, reflections of a hunter-killer. Well, you need not be afraid that he's a killer. He's not really a killer so much. He's actually helping to conserve animals and ecosystems all over the world, because he's actually headed major conservation initiatives, not just in Singapore, but also in Asia, in the world as well. So we are extremely fortunate to have Peter with us today. And the format of this meeting is that Peter would deliver a talk on this topic, and afterwards we'll have some time for Q&A. So it's not just about science, it's also about doing science. So even if you are not a scientist, or if you cannot understand everything that Peter says about crab ecology, taxonomy, and so on, I'm sure that you would have something to mention and talk about with Peter. So I look forward to you participating in the Q&A session as well. So without further ado, I'll just hand over to Professor Peter Ng.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I use that easier. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. First, thank you for coming on a Sunday afternoon. Okay, I apologize. My Cantonese, I'm mamate only lah. So if I speak to you in Cantonese, you will probably not understand half the things I say. But since my mother is Cantonese and from Hong Kong, I will try to mix some English with Cantonese. It makes it more fun. I don't always have a chance to use Cantonese. So thanks to Joe for the kind introduction. He's an old friend. Many years ago when I came to Hong Kong to catch crabs, he brought me around different places to catch animals. And of course, I also thank Professor Chu Ka Hao for inviting me for this series of talks. It's a very great honor to be invited to be part of this series of talks. And it's also correct that the first one that starts is a public talk in which we talk to members of the public and people which are not really doing science most of the time to understand what crazy people like me do. Well, as Joe said, one of the things about myself is, I suppose, is that over the last 30 or 40 years working in the university and doing research is that research is only my part-time job. The university sees me in different roles. One, of course, as a researcher. One is a teacher. I'm supposed to teach students. And of course, in the last 10, 15 years, most of my time is doing administration. But of course, you still have to do the others, all right? Hong Kong and Singapore share one important thing. Our whole society is built on money, all right? And we are very obsessed with the economy. So, keeping that in mind, let's get started. Today, I want to talk a bit about passion and intelligence in science, because when Professor Chu asked me what kind of topics I would like to share with the public, one of the things that has been annoying me very much in the last 4 or 5 years is how my government, my leaders, and my colleagues deal with science education and intelligence. I don't know about Hong Kong. I know Singapore very well. In Singapore, our government, my leaders, like to plan everything far ahead. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They like to decide who will lead the country. They like to decide who will lead different organizations. They find young people and they train them from very young. They make sure their grades are good. They send them to big scholarships. And they make sure they do very well. And when they do very well, they either join the army as a general or become a scholar, become a bureaucrat, become a director. When I was very young, when I was still a young boy, I was told, if you do not become a director by the time you're 30 years old, 你冇用嘅. Okay? 嘥氣，我同你講啦，冇用嘅. So we were trained from very young that you have to do very well. And the country plans your future. Well, I'm not a scholar, okay? Most of my time in school, I was doing not so nice things, like making the teacher angry. trying to make sure the principal doesn't cane me. Nowadays, you cannot cane students. Old days can. So I'm going to tell you how I've come to this particular stage of my life, doing what I like doing very much, which is killing things. I'm also told by my colleagues I cannot use the word kill because that's not a nice word. Okay? In Singapore, last 10 years, we have been very politically correct. Every word you say must be careful. 好容易得罪人. Okay? Well, 冇辦法啦，一定係得罪人啦。So today, I will say a few things. So, many of you, I think, if I tell you the story about passion and intelligence in science, you will probably identify with some of the things I talk about, right? Because actually, I'm not much different from most of you, right? In the sense that we have had to work very hard to get to where we are, right? So, I'm going to tell you a story. As I said, I was not supposed to be a professor or lecturer because my grades are mamate only, right? I didn't do that good for most of my subjects, okay? But, okay, I can talk. I was supposed to be a lawyer. I almost went to law school. I almost became a vet because I like animals. But for a long story, never became a lawyer, never became a vet. I think I would have been a good lawyer. And I definitely can make much more money. Right? I've got friends which are not very good lawyers. But now they are very rich men, they are ministers, they are multimillionaires. I regret I should have been a lawyer. Okay? As a scientist, 好少錢啊. You don't make much money. But one of the things all my life I've had to do, because I've got to do a lot of unusual things, is that I tend to do what my heart tells me to do. Right? I don't usually follow the rules that much. And it's very important because following your heart as to what you like to do is one of my old teachers used to tell me, you're going to spend a lot of your life, and you only have one life. And you better spend it on something you like to do, rather than what you have to do. Okay? Making money is important, but may not make you happy. So, when I actually joined the university in 1990, before that I was a teacher in the schools. I was teaching in the schools for 8 years. I did my PhD part-time, got married along the way. Somewhere in between, I decided to go to the university. And when I joined university, one of my big professors said, why are you inside here? You're not the kind of people we hire. Right? Yeah. Universities need diversity. Okay. Wrong button. Who am I? I like to catch and kill things. As Joe says, one of the things that makes me very happy is going around all over the world looking for strange animals, looking for strange fish, crabs, and other animals, going to places that people don't usually go to, because it's great fun seeing all kinds of strange things and strange animals. Every red dot here on this map is where I've done some bad things. Every yellow dot is where I've sent my students to do some bad things. We go around looking for interesting animals because we want to know what they are, right? And that has given me a perspective, a view of the world, which is different from most people. Last 3 weeks, in fact, until 2 days ago, I was in the Indian Ocean. We were with the Indonesian group out on a boat in the middle of the Indian Ocean, setting nets, setting traps to 2,000 meters, looking for deep sea animals. It's great fun when you're out there in the boat. No traffic jam, no people. Of course, you also have no idea what time it is because you're working throughout the day. Right? We catch all sorts of wonderful animals. Everybody on the boat, the 20 of us scientists on the boat, everybody got excited each time the net comes up because you're taking animals from 1,000 meters, 2,000 meters, and they come up sometimes alive. It's great fun. You need to know what are the animals living in all the parts of the world. In your rainforests, in your mangroves, in your deep sea. Because these days, people want to conserve. They want to protect as much as they can. We know that our planet is in trouble. We know we are doing a lot of bad things to make money. So one of the things I always tell my students is, You cannot protect what you do not know. So to know, you have to go and find them. So these are some of the very cool crabs we found and prawns we found in the cruise. We found about 15, 20 new species of crabs and prawns. Right? Quite exciting when you work with your colleagues and they tell you, oh, new species, sanzong. And these are things people have not seen before. But there is a problem. And my students and my colleagues always tell me, Peter, 你是杀手. You catch all these animals, you say you conserve them. Then to conserve them, you must release them back. I don't. I put them in a bottle of alcohol. Right? Because I need to examine them. I need to dissect them. I need to do not so nice things to them to find out what they are. Because I'm a scientist. My job is to check what the animals are and have clear evidence that this animal is species A or species B. I don't have to kill a lot, but I have to kill. And they always say, why are you so cruel? Why don't you study these animals without killing them? Because I cannot. There's no other way. Because other people need to check them. Other people need to examine them in the future. My moral dilemma is a complicated one. I have to kill the animals so that I know what they are. And once I know what they are, I can conserve them. Because I know it's a rare species or a new species or a species found only in Hong Kong or Singapore. It is not nice, okay? And I got some friends who don't like me very much because they say, you are a killer, right? And the worst word they use, well, it was a bad word when they first used it on me when I was young. You are a hypocrite, right? You say you conserve, but yet you kill, right? When the first time they said it to me 20 years ago, it felt painful. Ho sam tong. Now I'm proud of it. And I'll tell you why afterwards. People forget that sometimes to do good things, you have to do bad things, right? One of the most famous words I've seen in a grave in France from the First World War. Some must die so that others may live, okay? It's like when you're in a war, they ta jiong, okay? You want to save the people, you have to kill people. Maybe not your people, you have to kill other people, all right? But killing the enemy doesn't make you better. Killing is bad, okay? But if you don't kill, they kill you. I need to conserve. I need to protect animals and habitats. I need to find out what is there. I have to kill some. By killing some, I hope the rest can live. Is it the right thing to do? Yes. Is it a kind thing to do? No. Am I a bad person? Sort of. Okay? Luckily, I'm not a Buddhist. When I was young, when people say things to me, you're bad, you feel bad. Nowadays, my skin is a lot thicker, right? In a way, your innocence is lost as you grow up in the world, right? And as you grow older and you see more things, you begin to live a very conflicted life. You have to do certain things for the greater good. That's what I feel, all right? Why am I happy to be a hypocrite? Well, because I'll tell you honestly, every person in this room is a hypocrite. Am I insulting you? Yes. Okay? Some of you say, I'm not a hypocrite. Really? Every person I know is a hypocrite in one way or the other. All right? I tell my students this and they always argue with me. And they always lose. And I ask them, so you want to have a lecture? Yes. What kind of room will you choose? This is a nice room. Air conditioned, got nice lights. How much carbon are you emitting? How much power are you using? We should be having this lecture outside in the hot sun without all these high-tech things to save the world. But then you'll not be very happy. During the summer of Hong Kong, I know it gets a bit hot. All of you will turn on your aircons, same as Singapore. Turning on aircon is no good, but we need it. You drive, you take trains, you do all the things we like. Singapore and Hong Kong are the same. We like the first world life. We like a good life. And to have a good life, we do a lot of not so nice things to the environment. You are not a hypocrite. I've got friends who say, I believe in animal rights. Then I asked them, do you eat chicken? Yeah. I said, how can you eat chicken if you believe in animal rights? I said, I don't kill the chicken. What? I go supermarket, buy the chicken. Then I tell them, you are a hypocrite. And they protest. After a bit of protestation, they stop because they know they are hypocrites. In a society we live in, we try to be less hypocritical, but we are all like that. So I'm quite proud of it. As you do science, as you do research on animals, and your career gets better because you know you're doing well, your university promotes you, all right? And I can tell you, I've been a professor. The worst thing the university ever did to me is to promote me. Because after they promoted me, they started giving me more work still, right? Some people say, you know, university, after they promote you, you can have an easy life. 坐喺度唔使做工啦， right? 你係 professor 啦 ，OK？ 你講咩嘢，學生一定係聽嘅。Not true. They give you more work. I don't know about Hong Kong, but Singapore is like that. Okay. What can I say about our Chinese culture? All right. Once they make you a professor and they think you can do a good job, they give you more work. And one of the things they do to you, which is very bad, people think that senior professors and senior researchers just carry on doing what they do. No, very often they give you administration. So one of the things the university made me do 15, 20 years ago, right? Joe was saying very nice things about I do all those things. I don't want to do, okay? Very often, no choice, okay? And what the university asks you to do is actually a good thing. So, and I have a very bad habit. And my bosses know it very well. I don't like to lose. If I'm given a job, I want to finish it, okay? So I don't like to lose. So they know that, and that's my problem. So when they wanted to build a natural history museum, all right, as in Singapore style, I don't know about Hong Kong, all right? So my bosses said, you know, Peter, we need a natural history museum for Singapore. We got art, we got National Gallery, we got history. We need a natural history museum. I said, very good. It will cost $40 million. I said, no, but Singapore very poor. We have no money for this. University also very poor. We need a museum. Go and find the money. Okay? Because a natural history museum is important for the country. It's good for research. It's good for conservation. So we go and look for the money. And as usual, I don't know about Hong Kong again, the boss said, you know, very good. Now you go look for the money. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I give you 6 months. Because we are very impatient. So, this and other things come, we do the job, and you think that after you've done one job, you can relax. They give you another job. Okay? So, some of the things that Joe mentioned I have to do for the university, for the government, for the country, and all these sort of things. I won't run away, I cannot run. So, once you get into management and you have to do all these sort of things, all right, your brain also changes. Do I still catch my animals? Yes, I still catch my animals. It's good fun, okay? But half the time, 3/4 of the time, right, and Joe will get more and more of that. Now you're in charge of Simon Lee, all right? Budgets, head counts, key performance indicators, benchmarking, rankings, right? The university is obsessed with all these things because it has to balance the books. When I was young, the boss asked, so Peter, what good paper do you publish this year? What wonderful crab do you find this year? When you get older, the boss asks you a different question. So how much money did you bring for the university last year? You say, no, but I published this big paper. No. How much money? Don't talk about papers, right? I train this student. No. Don't talk about students. Student is your job. Tell me how much money you bring. Oh, okay, money law. Okay. Is the budget balanced? Okay. Can you make sure people don't get fired? So, your priorities change. Now, this is a very nasty business because to do management, you cannot be a nice guy. In the last 15 years, having to do administration, you learn a new word. I have no translation in Cantonese for this. This is a word coined by the German Chancellor Bismarck 150 years ago, right? It means basically you do management on the basis of practicalities. What is real on the ground? You take the ideals and put them one side. When I was young, I had a lot more ideals than I have now. Right? That's the sad part I'm sharing with you. The ideals are what you would like the world to be, what you would like yourself to be. When you do bigger science, when you do management, you have to do what you have to do. One of my ambassadors I work with said, Peter, you are a very wicked man. At first I felt insulted again. You know, usually the first time when an ambassador, you know, you are wicked, right? You feel bad. They say, oh, no, don't feel bad, Peter. It's a compliment. I say, huh? Why is the ambassador telling me that I'm a wicked person and it's a compliment? Because he says this. In the government, in many places, okay, there are people who do things because it's good for themselves, but not good for the country. Okay? If you are doing things which is good for the country, sometimes you have to be not so nice to some people, especially the GC people. Right? And in the process, you have to bend a lot of rules. I can tell you, I've never broken a rule in my whole life. But sometimes I bend it 180 degrees. So I thought, you know, some of my people will scold me. But I'm lucky some of my bosses actually like me because I bend the rules. Right? Because I bend the rules, I get a job done, and everybody is happy. So he says, you've done a lot of wicked things. But the wicked things are good for the university and good for the country. So I'm forgiven. And to punish me, it gives me more work. I don't know if I should tell this to the public, but certainly I don't tell this. I try not to tell this to young people because young people should have ideals because you must start with ideals. As you get older, you lose your innocence. That's okay, right? I look at this audience here. I think most are a bit older, so it's okay. Many of you have gone through the same life I have in different ways, and you know that if you live your life full of ideals, you'll be a very sad person. Innocence. I'm not sure it's a good word for the world we live in today. So, what do I believe? After doing so much science, looking for animals, killing them, being scolded, being complimented, doing administration, doing good things, bad things, and still doing all sorts of things for the university and the government, what are the things I think about? Well, there are 2 or 3 things which is quite close to my heart, right? Of course, crabs are the closest thing to my heart as far as my university life is concerned. Okay? I like catching crabs, and I like finding out what species they are. I love it when I find a crab nobody has seen before. That is fun. That makes me feel good. But 2 other things are close to my heart. Both start with E. I've been teaching students conservation biology, environmental science for 20, 30 years. When you study animals, the connection to the environment is obvious. When I deal with some of these government agencies talking about conservation, it's a very difficult business because every group of people wanting to conserve the environment or deal with the environment have a different need. Environment issues are all of this. Whenever you talk to certain groups of people, they'll tell you what they're interested in. I want to protect this fish. I don't care about anything else. The government says, I need to make sure that GDP increases by 3% next year. Others want different things. Today in Singapore, and I read in Hong Kong, it's the same thing. Every time you want to build something, you want to design a new train line, you want to build a new building, you want to have a new factory, you have to do lots of environmental impact studies. You have to engage the public. You have to talk to them, explain to them why you're doing this, all right? And when you do that, and if you are the chairman of that, everybody hates you. The people building hate you. Why? You're wasting their money. I've got people where I work in a zoo. Say, you know, the best way to build a new zoo is to build it as fast as possible. It saves money. Then the nature people come and say, no, everything must be slow because the birds are not happy when you build, right? You must only work 4 days a week and let the birds rest 3 days so they don't have too much noise. When you drill a hole, you cannot make noise. Huh? Okay? And if accidents happen, people will complain. And newspaper reporters will write stories in different ways. Some might like it, some don't like it. If you are sharing something on environment, it's complicated because everybody has a say. Who is right? So I just put some of the points, when you do any environmental exercise, you go, all these things to worry about, right? And you notice science is only one small part down here. Actually, to be very honest, when you're doing environmental work, science is the least important. Don't quote me. I know the university will also say science is very important. After doing this for the last 20 years, I can tell you science is the least important. You know what's the most important? And this one also lah. Okay? Nowadays, more and more of this, and then got this, got this. And every year, there's more and more. Okay? And if you are chairing something on this, you have to keep everybody happy, which is very, very difficult. One thing I've learned, and this is one of my favorite phrases, I use it in my class all the time, is from Henry Kissinger. All right? He's an interesting politician. Even though his boss was kicked out of the presidency, I still like him because he's a very smart man, I think. He wrote this back in the 70s, okay? People forget that in politics, we like to judge. You're good, you're bad. You do the right thing, wrong thing. But very often, there's no one right. In an environment, actually, a lot of people are right, okay? And the challenge for any manager, any person in charge of a program, is to make sure this does not happen, okay? That you have two groups of people, both with a good case, fighting each other. And if they do fight, then everybody loses. This is one of the tragedies of politics that people don't realize, all right? There can be more than one right. In Singapore, we have this problem all the time because our island is small. But Hong Kong is a bit bigger than Singapore, right? But you also have 1.5 million people more than Singapore. So, when you are in management, you have to keep your mind. Don't judge too quickly. The other E, which is very close to my heart, is education. Why? Because I've been in the university now for 30, 40 years. And all the time they say, oh, we need to train young people for the next generation. I'm sure you hear this in your university here as well, right? The young people are important for the new generation coming, for the new challenges coming, right? And they always talk about training young people for a new world. Well, that's important. Software, how they think. Hardware, give them technology. And today we have a lot of technology, right? And very often I got people, ministers even telling me, right, with technology, we will solve it. I don't agree. People talk too much about software, how we train people, too much about hardware, the equipment you give them. In science, I work on crabs and fish, but more crabs than fish. Nowadays, I don't like fish so much. No time for fish, all right? We use a lot of things like DNA, like molecules, right? And people say, oh, that's very important. Yes, it's important, but it's a tool. At the end of the day, what makes a scientist is not the toy you're playing with. What makes the scientist is your brain. It's what's inside your head that matters the most. And this is where I always argue with my bosses. I have a big problem with all the universities of Asia. Actually, I have a big problem with all the universities of the world. Every year, my university would like to boast to us. NUS is #1 in Asia. We must stay #1. Hong Kong U and Chinese University are chasing behind. We've got to make sure we beat them. Okay? Peita and Tsinghua are chasing after us also. Make sure we beat them. Okay? We must be #1 in Asia. Very stressful. Every year, we must produce X thousand of students because this is what the minister gives the money to the university for. We must produce a fixed number of students. So what do you have to do? Well, make sure that when you teach students, it's cost effective. Don't spend too much money. Don't let students take too long to study because, you subsidize education. I think Hong Kong also subsidized, right? So if the students take longer, taxpayers have to pay more. Get them out as soon as possible. Make sure the students are doing courses that help the country make money. or help, in your case, the SAR make money. Don't let them do 无聊 things. Okay? I used to have one politician, Peter, I think from now on, all biologists should do biomedical. I said, why? Because the future is biomedical. I said, but what are people who like to play with, fish and crabs? Don't offer the course. Then they have no choice. They have a choice. They go somewhere else. They go overseas and then they complain that the country doesn't help them. Okay, we try. We engineer and commercialize the education sector. We produce graduates for the market. If the market needs more business people, we produce more business people. The problem I have in Singapore, and I know you have it in Hong Kong, is our smartest people these days no longer go to medicine. They no longer go to engineering. Where do they go? Business school. They want to make money faster. Make sure the science that is done can pay for itself. Make sure the science you do can make money for the country. And Singapore, I think Hong Kong is the same. Make sure the money, make it fast. When they give you a project, they tell you, how much money can you make after 3 years? But this project takes 10 years. No, not interested. 3 years. Okay? I'm very nice, I give you 5 years. Hong Kong, yeah, okay? This commodification of university education, I absolutely hate it. Okay? But since we are all so caught up in rankings, all the universities of Asia and American, we follow this. And when I go to universities these days, when we talk to students and we go for classes, I feel very pressured. Why? Because I don't have the time to talk to them slowly as I used to do in the old days. For the older people here, the older professors here, which are in their 50s or 60s, you will remember what your PhD education was like. You sit down with a professor drinking coffee, talking about stupid things. My professor used to talk to me about chaos theory, Russian Revolution, right? Marxian philosophy. Yeah, we also talk about Marx once in a while. Okay? And we learn, I'm a biologist, but I train my mind. Okay? These days, we see the students in the lab, most of the time we say, how many papers have you finished this year? Have you gone for all your courses? Right? Help me write a grant. I need more money for next year to support the research. We are moving too fast. My favorite book I've read in the last 2 years is that one, and I strongly advocate all of you to read it. Yeah, it's a wonderful book. Okay? It's a very easy book to read. You can read it in one day. Right? If you have a chance, go and read this book. I don't know the author and I don't support them, but it's a nice book to read. This is a book that complains about what is wrong with the university system. That we train the graduates for the market and the business, not to train the graduates so that they can think. This guy who wrote this book was the man who brought Albert Einstein from Germany to the US. He brought a team of people from the US, from Europe, and around the world in the 30s and 40s, before the Second World War. This group of people he brought to the US, Flexner, were people doing, at that time, 无聊 science, because they were doing quantum physics, particle mechanics, E equals mc squared. 賺唔到錢，呢啲人都冇用嘅。All right? He brought them to the US because they were smart people. He let them do almost anything they want. Right? 10 years later, this man built them the atomic bomb. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but he built them the atomic bomb. Right? And that changed the war. That changed the world. Knowledge is something we get, but it's difficult to predict. If we use that model for today's science, we'll never build the atomic bomb. Albert Einstein, all of them will be fired. Because they have to produce big papers every year. Big lesson we forget. The university's job is this. I believe passion and the brain is more powerful than any technology you will have. All right? All the money in the world cannot change, cannot replace this. As I get older and I see the universities work and I see the countries work, this phrase back from the 50s always comes back to mind. When I teach my students philosophy, I like teaching philosophy. It's good fun, more fun than science, right? Look at these words carefully and ask yourself, 50s, 60s, new millennium now, are we in this same mess that we are in? Before you all say so much, for those of you who have not read Frankenstein, the movie, Frankenstein is actually the doctor, not the monster. He was the man who brought the monster back to life, brought the dead back to life. His motives, his reasons for doing it are very good. He wants to bring dead back to life. What he created was scary, all right? The moral of Frankenstein's story is, are you sure that's what you want? But this is the world we live in. We use the science that we have around us, and we use it for a very strange reason. And our whole university is built around market forces, which I don't really agree. 10, 15 years ago, I was in a very nice conversation with my very powerful people. You know, in Singapore, we have a Ministry of Education. I think it's run by permanent secretaries. Hong Kong is the same, isn't it? PermSec, right? So they were building a whole new school for science and technology, because they wanted to train young people so that they can win Nobel Prize. Yeah, well, we wanted to do that in Singapore. I won't tell you all the details, otherwise I get scolded. So they wanted to build a whole new school. So they're interviewing 4 or 5 candidates. And for some stupid reason, my dean thought that I was a good candidate. So I sat in front of a meeting room, and my permanent secretary for education and a few, 大人物 were all in front of me. And they said, Peter, tell me, what is the philosophy to train young people to win Nobel Prizes for the future? I told him, let them cause trouble. Yeah, what do you mean? Let young people do what they like to do. And occasionally, they'll blow up your lab. Occasionally, they'll do stupid things that get you into trouble. Occasionally, they will break a few rules, right? And very often, they will make you angry. Then he looked at me and said, no. You cannot let them do whatever they want, okay? You need to control them. We plan for a Nobel Prize winner. Then I told him, but I've done my homework. Most Nobel Prize winners are troublemakers when they were young. Or they fail in school. Or they get thrown out of school because they do something stupid. No. This is Singapore. We plan ahead. Okay? I said, you cannot. To train young people, you open the door, give them the opportunities. Let them make mistakes, let them do stupid things. Open the door, give them the chance, forgive them. No, we open the door a bit. I said, it doesn't make sense. The door is either open or closed. There's no open a bit. At that point, I knew I didn't get a job. I'm glad I didn't get a job, because the school still doesn't have a Nobel Prize winner. The problem with all this planning is that we cannot really plan for good science and good thinking. It's not the hardware. It's not the software. This is the most important. The best scientists I know from Singapore, from Hong Kong, and the world are people which are all a bit mad. Why do I say mad? Because they're doing this because it's fun. They're doing this even if their wife doesn't allow them to do it. They're doing this even if it doesn't make money. They're doing this even if they don't get promoted. That's why I say they're mad. But I like them. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. It's all about heart. This is a good friend of mine. He's not here. Yeah, he's in Singapore. He's going to kill me. He's catching fish, okay? This is after one whole day of work catching fish. He looks half dead, all right? Why do you want to go out there, torture yourself like this to catch a rare fish? Because it's fun? Yes. Science and knowledge is not about this. If this is what you're going for when you first start, for the younger people here, you think you can make money from science, change your mind now. You will not make money, okay? I can tell you after 30, 40 years of doing this, you don't make money. But there's one thing you will take to your grave, which is much better. You have a good time. You will enjoy yourself, right? And you will remember. In education, this is what we have to do. Martin Luther King, which was assassinated in the 60s, all right, said this of the American psyche, all right? We train. We have the ability to build guided missiles, but our men are all useless. Why? They know how to do things. They don't know what's right and wrong. You need passion. The university system has to encourage passion. Let young people do stupid things. I like hard work, okay? These days in the lab, I score my students more than before because many of my younger students say, boss, you know what is work-life balance or not? I say, what? Yeah, today is Saturday. I'm going off with my boyfriend now. I said, but you haven't finished your work. No, work-life balance. Okay, I come back on Monday. Then after a while, I get very, very angry, right? I say, come back on Sunday. No, work-life balance. I'm going to see a movie with my family after that, right? They seem to be happy, right? And then after that, they complain, hey, how come the other one you sent for conference and not me? Because the other one published more papers than you and worked harder than you. But it's not fair. That one has no work-life balance. I do not reward work-life balance. I reward. I think Hong Kong also having the same problem as us nowadays. Yeah. So I tell students, if you're not happy, go and complain to the provost. Okay? In our society, we reward hard work. Work-life balance is nice to have, not essential. And this is something we don't teach universities these days. 識做人啊, right? I was talking to your head of school yesterday, all right? It's about creating empathy, how to be a good person in doing the right thing, okay? We have a lot of scientists these days, and I met many of them. Some of them scare me. Why? They have no heart. They are doing this because it will make them a full professor and they get more money out of it. They don't care if you live or die. Very dangerous. I sum up. What are the things I believe a lot in? Oh, my timing is okay. First, there are no ivory towers. There's no such thing as once you become a professor, you do very well, you can sit in a place and be comfortable and shake your leg. No such thing. In the world we live in with social media, handphones and everything, everybody knows what you're doing. There's no free lunch. You want success, you have to work for it. You may have to make sacrifices, right? Well, my parents had to work very hard to send me through school. I had to work when I was studying to balance my books. I don't believe in taking the easy way out. You want something, you work for it. Nobody owes you a living. When I was younger, I used to complain that my government whole day, don't give me this, don't give me this, don't give me that. Now, actually, I'm happy they didn't give me any of that. Why? Because I did exactly the opposite to get what I wanted. It taught me independence. That's good. People complain about change. The world is changing a lot. Life is about change. You can't stop it. Zero-sum game. A lot of things you will do with your friends and colleagues, you might think it's a zero-sum game. I win, you lose. No. It is possible, and I can tell you after 30, 40 years at this, you can win and win. Or both will lose. Right? One of the things I'm very good at doing, and I'm very proud of it, I don't have many enemies. I got some. I'll be abnormal if I don't have any enemies. All right? But one thing I always tell my students is, if you hate this person very much, okay, ask yourself a few questions. Number one, what do you think will happen in 20 years' time? You might need this person to help you do something. Why do you want to be so angry now? All right? Choose your battles. Some people will disagree with you. You don't have to be angry about it. Zero-sum game is not the way to play. Everybody has strengths. Some of my people, when I was younger, I was so happy I didn't go and punch them in the face. Some of them are now some of my most trusted friends. Why? Because the world keeps changing. Today's friend, tomorrow's enemy. Okay? And most people, I can say that, most people are actually good people. They are just sometimes, very passionate. And as I said at the beginning, if you're going to spend your one life, and all of us only have one life, doing something, make sure you like what you're doing. Whenever I talk to my graduate students, I always tell them, you want to do a PhD? Yeah. Why? I want to be a professor. So, what are you going to do in 10 years' time? I don't know. What do you want to be in 20 years' time? Not sure. Go back and think again. Okay? You only have one life. If you are deciding to do that life as a researcher, then better choose carefully, because you cannot turn the clock back and start again. You don't have enough time. All of us can only live for, 50, 60, 70 years, right? So you better enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to be very, very sad. This is a phrase I use for one of my lectures, and my students like it very much. So now I use it for all my lectures. Right? The life we lead, the science we do, the things we have to manage are described in these 3 lines. There are layers, and there are many, many layers. The circles all overlap in different ways. And right and wrong sometimes are not so clear. Okay? At the end of the day, what you do, it must feel right to you. Okay? At a certain time, at a certain place. Nothing stays one way forever. Once you understand this, it's much easier to do things. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
咁咧，依家係Q&A 嘅時間啦。咁亦都有請Professor Jolie 同埋Professor Peter 咧上座先嘅。
Okay, I should thank Peter again, as usual, for a brilliant and thought-provoking speech, and totally unconventional, should I say, most of the time. And, well, as I said, this time is actually for Q&A, and I'm sure that some of you would have some questions or points for discussion. If you don't feel like talking in English, I'm sure that Peter would be able to understand your if necessary, we can also help translate. And so please just ask, and we can start the discussion going. And there are, yes, please. Yes.
Mr. 因為我見到好多人吸煙啊，吸煙啊 ，heavy smoker。I feel it should set more control. On the freedom, need to be help. 我哋需要咧喺健康啊，或者某啲理由咧，我哋都需要控制翻啲人嘅 behaviour 咯，就唔係由佢哋無限咁自由發揮咯。唔該。
Well, this gentleman is saying that there are some heavy smokers in society, and should we do something to control this behavior? And
whoa, okay. Okay, I'm not a health specialist. Okay, heavy smoking is a very tricky problem. My old professor in my department who taught me, one gentleman called Mr. Murphy, he used to smoke about 7-8 packets a day. And I always tell him, Prof, stop smoking. You will get lung cancer and die. He is now 90 years old. I don't think he has any lungs. He's still alive. He's still in Singapore. And I still visit him once every few weeks. And he still jokes with me. However, the problem with smoking is it's a mix between personal choice, and some people believe that, versus doing bad things to your health. I believe, actually, if you want to smoke, it's your right, right? As long as you know fully what you're doing. However, for the smokers, I would always ask them, at least those students which I know are smoking, go to one corner because I don't want to smell your smoke, right? They have the right to smoke. I have the right not to smell the smoke. Should we stop them? In Singapore, for example, the government, my government, just doubled the taxes for cigarettes. So a lot of people are complaining a lot that, it's not good. But then I have a friend who's a doctor who says, the tax is important. I said, why? Because it helps pay for all the smoking-related cases the hospital have to deal with, because the country still has to pay. Now, the problem with smoking, other than the environmental issues, is that it is also a multi-billion-dollar industry. There are a lot of big companies selling tobacco, and they need to make money. And I'm told by a social biologist, which I work with, he said, you want to stop smoking, you know what you will do? I said, I will make the air cleaner, I will reduce the lung cancer. He said, no, you're going to put a lot of people out of work. I said, what? Do you know how many thousands of people in Southeast Asia, maybe even in China and so on, their income comes from growing tobacco? What are these people going to do if you suddenly decide to stop smoking altogether? These people have a job. No tobacco, what will they do? Grow opium. I joke, and then he said, no, we change them from opium to tobacco. Now you are changing them to something else. There are consequences, Everything is connected, as I said. Environmental issues, including smoking, they're all connected. Eventually, we have to deal with the problem, but you have to deal with this step by step. For the moment, we have to find a way of dealing with the big tobacco companies. They are the biggest challenge of how to get them to change the product they are making. I don't think there's a simple solution, but I do know the statistics, at least in Hong Kong and Singapore. The number of young people smoking actually is going down. In developed countries, the number of people who smoke actually go down because they know the problems. That's good news for our countries. The bad news, countries which are much poorer, the number of people smoking is very high. That's a problem.
Well, Peter, I'd just like to follow on with this point about money and economy that you mentioned while answering this question about tobacco. If you look at the societies in Singapore and Hong Kong, they're both very, very much into making money, as you pointed out in your speech. And in societies like these, which are primarily driven by the desire to make money, and it seems to be the only criterion for success, then how would you actually advise young people? There aren't too many young people here today, unfortunately, but at least some of you are parents and teachers and so on. So how would you advise young people about doing science in a society that fundamentally would only value money? You talk about that, some of that, how you deal with the university hierarchy in similar situations. But when you have the chance to actually speak to a young budding scientist or your kid at home and so on, then how would you persuade someone that this is the way to handle this?
I thought you were a friend asking me those terrible questions. No, it's a hard question. I don't have a good answer. I always tell the younger people, including my own children, follow your heart. That's most important because you're going to spend all your time doing that. The money part, you cannot escape for it. In the university system, because we are so caught up in this model that counts all these sort of things, we cannot defeat the system. Not now, not yet. So anybody in the university has to moderate between what the big organization wants and what you want. I'll be a simple example. I chase after crabs. My boss always tells me, your crabs don't make money. I say, yes. Okay? The impact factor very low. True. Okay? The only thing good about your crabs is that everybody knows what you're doing, and you have a lot of friends in all sorts of strange places. I said, isn't that good? He said, yes, that's one of the few good things. Then I said, you've forgotten one thing that this balancing act is to do. Is made me, at least for me, I don't know about everybody, but for myself, I need to think on my feet most of the time. I need to be balancing all the economic needs, political needs, scientific needs, right? So actually, those skill sets come from my playing with crabs. And the university benefits from that. And the reason why I do my job well is because, well, the passion I have for my research is the same passion I take when I do my administration or do the things I need to do for class and so on. I cannot cut one out from the other. And I think in the university system, strangely enough, KB and I were talking over dinner last night, all right? At the end of the day, for professors and so on, when we teach young people, we have to teach them how to balance this. Yes, you have to do some of these not so nice things like producing high-impact papers, write big papers to keep the big bosses happy. But that doesn't mean you do it 100% of the time. You should spend a bit of time doing what you like as well. And that will make you a better scientist. I think the good professors, the good researchers know that balance. If a young researcher only knows how to write the highest impact papers and doesn't care anything about anything else, this is a very dangerous person we are training, okay? An unguided missile is very dangerous, okay? And worse, no soul, right? And these sort of people, if they ever become the dean or the heads or the presidents of a university, God help all of you, right? It's no different from having an Adolf Hitler run a place, okay? These people have no soul. At the end of the day, we have to do that balancing point. I think it is possible in our cultures, even though we are so obsessed with money. See, Singapore, we are now going through a very strange phase in our growth. We are now 51 years old. Okay? I suspect Hong Kong is have the same problem. We have Singaporeans right now, most of them, financially, they're okay. The country takes good care of them. The country, economically, is quite healthy. I think our budget surplus is bigger than yours. Yeah. Okay? And last year, when they made the budget, I just read your budget as well. I think you're not happy with your big boss for not giving the money back to the people. In Singapore, we had the same thing. The government said, 2-3 years ago, there was a financial crisis. We took money out of reserves. Now we have to put all that money back, plus interest, plus the profits we would have made, plus the investments we should have done. He said, what? So basically, all the surplus went in there. Right? And after that, we still have to find more money. The people are financially comfortable. The people are beginning to ask different sorts of questions right now. What is it to be a Singaporean? Is it just the money? No. Like I said, some people say quality of life, right? What is being a Singaporean? What is living all about? If it's just about money, then something is wrong. And I think that message is getting through even to the senior people, because nowadays I've got some students who don't care whether they finish the degree in 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. They want to take their own sweet time. Why? They want to go and see the world. They take 1 year off to travel to Europe and come back because they can afford it. Is that good for them? Maybe. But the world is changing, right? I think the problem right now is for us in Singapore is that the older people, I suppose like us and whatever, we do not understand the brain and the mind of young people. I know that, okay? My children drive me crazy, right? Because they think in a way which for the older folks I cannot sometimes understand. So I also realize one thing, right? The leadership has to change. The leaders in the university, the leaders in different groups, they have to change to people which better understand the younger generation, how they conduct science, how they do education, how they, handle their lives. I'm a bit frustrated sometimes, trying to understand the younger psyche, right? But now I'm getting more resigned. because I think I probably did the same thing to my parents when I was younger,
Sure.
as all of us did, okay? So every generation has to find their own rhythm, okay? But the rhythm of a developed country and the rhythm of a non-developed country is not the same. And Hong Kong and Singapore, I think, share 90% of the attributes and problems. How to change the psyche, right? Not easy.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Professor Ng, for your very great lecture and full of enlightenment. I'm a semiconductor microelectronic engineer working for the largest semiconductor company in the world, full of talents. This is a very special industry. It is not a capital-intensive, labor-intensive industry, but also an elite-intensive industry. I basically pretty much agree with your basically agreed with almost all what you said. I encountered a similar situation in my working environment, in the sense that the better I work, the better I perform, I got more tasks. And I always feel that my boss is trying to find out to what limit I can be stretched, to what extent. And I always feel that nobody would know my limit, even myself don't know. Because I work over nights and nights and nights without, say, sleeping over 90 hours, working super fast in every single hours. And even I change my job, and I find my second boss behave the same way. So, like you, I don't want to lose. I want to outperform. But at the end, I get the pain. And I feel very frustrated. I find no way to get out of this. And I just feel frustrated. I want to know get some idea from you. I mean, is there any suggestion you would give me? Because the problem is all my colleagues are very bright, super talents. Like the colleague sitting next to me, he did 3 master's degree in MIT in 2 years. It was full of many people like this all around me. And if I don't do it, I mean, perhaps they can take over. Likewise, the other way around. And I don't know, this is a cycle to me. And I don't know how to get out of this.
Whoa. That's a tough question.
It's a philosophical question. Can I ask you a question? Are you happy in your job? Do you like your boss? Do you like your boss?
Right.
Mm. No, I think the two things here is, number one, you must be happy with your job, and number two, you must like your boss. You don't like your boss? Well, then you need to change jobs. No, I mean, the thing about, I know your problem. In the sense that when you do a good job, you end up with more work, right? And you're right, the competition actually can be, I mean, in the private industry, you are in the private industry. It can be very stressful in the sense that you have colleagues around you which are capable. Everybody is fighting for a job. And of course, what do you bring to the job that keeps you important? When I work with many of these younger people, one of the things which I find that is an asset for me, because I've been in this business longer, is I have the one thing that many of the younger guys don't have. They are smarter than me, I know. They have more energy than me. I tire, after 5-6 hours talking, But I have the one thing that most young people do not have: experience, right? Experience not just in doing the job, but experience in the office politics, experience in the bigger world issues, experience how to deal with personal and technical problems, right? And the younger people, they are usually much smarter, but they can't handle those things, right? And this is where I think if you're older, those are the things that you will try to develop more. I mean, you do not compete with them for technical skill sets. They will beat you. As you said, they got more degrees than you have from MIT and Harvard or whatever, right? But this is where I said just now, one of the problems is that we are so focused on hardware and software that we forget that at the end of the day is how you do things that will change the game. There are, I mean, in the semiconductor industry, I suppose, and in all industries, it's not just about making the best product. It's about how you pitch that product, how you persuade people to buy that product, how do you persuade your bosses that this is a better product than the other one. And those are skill sets usually more experienced people will have, right? And I think that is something you need to emphasize yourself rather than compete with them. I think it is not a good idea to compete on a platform for which you are not suitable to compete, right? New skill sets, we learn. We cannot learn as fast as them. So that's why I say we change. Each of us, we have to change as we get older, change to the thing that we can do better, right? And the other thing I asked you about your boss is because, you see, for a university professor like myself, I'm luckier than the private industry. Why? Because in the universities, there's something called tenure, in which means that once you're given a job, it's very hard for your boss to fire you.
Not necessarily.
Hard, okay? But it's possible, but it's harder, all right? As long, in a university, what will protect your job? I tell you the most important thing, you must be a good teacher. If you are a good teacher and the students like you and you do your job well, the boss has a very hard time to fire you. 2, you're a good researcher. You do research that brings the university reputation, global recognition. If you do those okay, very hard for them to fire you, right? One of the reasons why I think I've been successful is because actually I don't want those jobs. I don't want to build a museum. I don't want to run programs. I don't want to do things for the government. I just want to go at my lab to kill crabs. So that's why I always tell my boss, you know, I'm doing this. He said, oh, Peter, you should not be doing this. I say, okay, lo, 炒魷魚咯. 炒魷魚 means I go back to my lab 做我家己嘅嘢咯. All right? So, no, cannot allow you. That will be rewarding you. I said, okay, lo, then you cannot complain. No? So that's the lucky thing I have. All right? It sometimes makes you more effective when you can move on if you feel like moving on. The jobs that you have in the semiconductor industry is a very hot industry right now. I think your skill sets, because of your experience, you can probably move one job to another. You will stay on in one place if you like your boss, if you think your boss is a good man. Not because he's nice to you, not because he gives you more time off, right? But because you think that he's a good man at heart. I mean, when I work in the university over the years, I've gone through 3 or 4 presidents in my university. Some I like. Those I don't like, I don't do. I don't do so much, I mean, right? Because you must have the support of your boss at the end of the day, at least to understand what you're doing is good. It's not easy, right? I'm lucky because most of the nice things I did in the last 10, 15 years, my last university president, I call him a long-suffering soul. Because every time you look at me and say, you know, yes, I know you did this. Yes, somebody is complaining, they want your head. But I know it's good for university, so don't worry. So he's going to protect me, right? Or when you do something that's good and your bosses understand, you feel good, you do more, right? And over all these years, I've done all these things. The boss that you have must share the same philosophy as you do before you want to do it more, right? I think your frustration is perhaps you feel that you need to compete with all the young people around you. You should not be competing. You're already ahead of them, right? So it's your mind and how you, I suppose, talk to the bosses and the chiefs, how you sell yourself. Right? One of the problems I have in Singapore is, I don't know how bad it is in Hong Kong. We love to have young people in the 40s and 50s, 30s and 40s to run big departments. Many of schools in Singapore, the principals are young, 30-something only. The generals in my army, most of them are 40, 35. I got friends which are brigadier generals, lieutenant generals, 40 years old. I always ask one question, and they always don't like it. You're so young. How much experience do you have? Oh, I've been to MIT, studied at Harvard, right? I did 3 MSCs, right? 2 MBAs. Wow. What's that got to do with the general? Oh, you don't understand. No, I don't. Okay? You know, in Singapore, we have to do 2.5 years of military service. Hong Kong, okay. Not yet. You know, when I was a young soldier, you know who I respect the most? All my old sergeants. They have been there for 30, 40 years. They speak broken English. They have no degree even. But when I go to the jungle with them, I stand next to them because I know this one will take me out of the jungle alive. Not the officer with all those things on their shoulder because they don't know what they're doing, right? What do I value most in my older years right now? Experience, okay? I will go to the ends of the world with somebody with a lot of experience because when it really matters, experience is much better than intelligence. I think the private sector works in the same way, in many ways, right? So don't get too worried.
I guess one key word I picked from your response to Peter's earlier comment is that you are self-motivated. Yes. And I think that is the most important element for most scientists and engineers included, that we enjoy our work because we are self-motivated, not so much because people actually applaud for our work and so on. So that's what's keep us going. Any more questions from the audience? Professor Lam.
I have a question about science.
Oh, yes.
So you kill animals.
Yes.
So, and you claim that by killing them, you learn something from them, learn their anatomy, and then you can eventually help them by conservation.
Yes.
So can you give me a successful story? So after you learn something from the crabs and then you're actually helping them.
Actually, this is an easy question. Okay, the best example that comes to my mind right now is one of the crabs which I found in Singapore when I was a very young man. So I work on crabs, as I said. I like them, okay? And then back in the 80s, you know, I was working on the freshwater crabs living in Singapore. And I found a new species there, found on one of the hills. So I gave it a nice name, Johora singaporensis, okay? So at the time, you know, just a new species, you name it, right? Then some people got excited. Oh, you mean it's only found in Singapore, you know? Singapore's so small, where got anything special? I said, God, it's not found in nearby countries at all. I said, Peter, how are you so sure it's not found in Malaysia or Indonesia? You know, all nearby. Singapore is an island connected to everything. I said, I'm very sure. How can you be so sure? Because I've killed in all these places as well, right? I've killed in many places. So I can tell you in Malaysia, there is something that looks like it, but it's something else. You go to Batam, you go to Indonesia, you have something else. They all look alike, but they are different, okay? So it's found only in Singapore. Yes, okay, very good. About 10 years ago, okay, we found that there was a problem with this crab. Why? Because many of the places it was found is gone. And the one place it was found where it was guaranteed to survive, which was in a nature reserve, cannot find anymore. A bit like your mypoensis, okay? And then suddenly it became very awkward because about 10 years ago, of course, more and more Singaporeans, of course, get excited about environmental issues. They want this thing called heritage. They are interested in their national heritage. So we found that this crab was disappearing. Then our conservation people got excited. Oh, found only in Singapore. Yeah. Maybe become extinct. Yeah. So I got a good friend who's passed away. So, Peter, this is a chance to write a nature paper. High impact paper. Singapore causes extinction of a species found only in Singapore. Sure high impact. Of course, this is half a joke, but when you tell this to government people, they get very worried. No, cannot. If you do this, then Singapore, you know, lose face. We are protecting the environment. We are having more national parks. We are having more staff, more research money. And then now you tell it's becoming extinct. Must do something. Not my problem. I just named the crab. It's your problem. So now in Singapore, there's actually set up the national parks, our conservation people, our zoo, private enterprise. They actually set aside a few $100,000, actually more than that, a few $1 million, to set up a conservation program to conserve this crab. They are doing captive breeding. They are trying to find out more about its biology. And they are very angry at me because I'm not interested. I said, well, I just named the animal. Now you guys have to be responsible to conserve it and find out why is it disappearing, right? Because the climate change, maybe, pollution, maybe, we don't know, right? So, and the nice thing is, somebody else joked, you know, if you didn't find this crab, if you never told anybody it was new to science and found only in Singapore, then I won't be wasting all this money. I said, true, right? You'll be saving all this money. But here's the other fact. The crab is there. Whether I find it 30 years ago or somebody finds it 20 years later, the crab is there, has always been there. Maybe it's worse. If you found out you did nothing, the crab becomes extinct, and somebody finds out that the crab was there after the event. More embarrassing still. So, naming species is important because if you are dealing with natural heritage, you're dealing with conservation, you have to know what is there. Because you cannot protect if you don't know it's there, right? I found a crab by luck. I found a crab by chance. 30 years later, it proved to be of conservation importance. We have used this data for conservation of different places in Malaysia, Indonesia, right? One of the things I like working a lot is, is in places where the water is black. In Malaysia, there are places known as peat swamps, right? David Dudgeon loves that, okay? Peat swamps are lovely places because the water is black. It tastes like tea or kopi o, black coffee, because the water is very acidic. And the Malaysian and Indonesian governments, they've been cutting this forest like nobody's business. Why? Because they say there's nothing living inside there. Water is black, in the middle of a jungle, so acidic. What can live down there? We went in. We found hundreds of species of fish. And say, cannot be. Fish, how can live in pH 3? I don't know. There. Oh, nobody found them before. I said, because nobody go in. You have to be stupid to jump into black water. Actually, it's very nice. The prettiest girls all come from black water. The acid water is very good for the skin. Never mind, that's another joke. The thing is that you need to know what are the animals living in the ecosystem if you want to come up with a conservation plan. If you want to say this area has to be protected, this area has to be protected, you need to know what are the things that are there. Today in Singapore, we have actually, same in Hong Kong, I know, lists of endangered and rare animals that are found in Hong Kong. Some species are found only in Hong Kong. They have higher conservation significance. Why? Well, it means you cannot let them become extinct. If they are found all over Hong Kong, Shenzhen, China, everywhere, okay, not so serious. If they're found only in Hong Kong, that's a problem. Because if it becomes extinct, then it's your fault. Well, some of you, right? And for developed countries, it's embarrassing. One of the most powerful tools I use to persuade my government to conserve is this very bad Chinese habit of losing face. They cannot lose face, right? So the species cannot become extinct. So it's actually very good for environmental work. So the crab is an example. We have done many studies with many other groups of animals, all right? And it is important to know. Because once you know, you can do the next step. Especially if we need laws, to protect certain species. It's useful.
Well, we certainly need more of those success stories. We can still accommodate maybe one question or two short questions. If there are.
Thank you, Professor, for your talk. So, as from your talk, you have mentioned there are sometimes conflicts between different parties, like from economics and conservation. So this problem also appears in Hong Kong very much, such as conservation and stuff. So there are sometimes, have you ever encountered that sometimes you need to deliver some knowledge or points of view which is very important, but the listeners just don't care about it? Do you have ever?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you encounter this kind of problems, do you have any tips or advices to ensure that your points of view or your knowledge is ensured to be delivered?
Okay, that's a good question. Conflicts of views, conflicts of what is important and not, all right, very common. In Singapore, whenever we have a development, it's always like this. About 20, 25 years ago, our way of dealing with it is usually, say, the developer or the government will sit down with the people they know they're not happy with, sit down and have a conversation with them, right? And usually it gets very difficult, right? Because very often in conservation, a lot of people are very emotional. No, I understand. I was emotional as well, right? And sometimes when the scientists tell the facts, the people which are passionate don't listen. I mean, I work with people which are bird watchers, okay? I don't know how many are bird watchers. Bird watchers are very passionate people, but they're not always logical. They love the animal so much, they don't care about anything else, right? I say, I got a friend who loves birds. Oh, this bird must work. I say, hey, you protect this bird, this whole forest will die, because everything in the bottom is fish. I don't care about your fish. Right? Okay. I like him. He's still a friend. Why? Because he's really passionate. He loves his birds. What I can advise, and this is a lesson I learned from one of my young ministers about 4 or 5 years ago. We had a part of forest, was given back to the government out unexpectedly. It was a long stretch of forest given back to the government. So the government could actually use the land to develop all sorts of new factories and housing if they wanted to. So this minister that was in charge wanted to have an open discussion on what to do with this forest. So one discussion was talk to all the stakeholders one by one, the developers, the nature groups, the scientists, okay? This young minister, decided to talk all of them at the same time. So I was there, big room, almost as many people as sitting here, okay? Who did he invite? This was about protecting a piece of land, right? Who did he invite? Well, the scientists, okay? Scientists came. The bird watchers, they came. He invited the people that might use the greenery for sports. He invited the joggers club, the bicycle club, the rock climbing clubs, all right? All sorts of characters. Developers as well. People, tourism. It was a big room. And for the first 2 hours, everybody was shouting at everybody. Why? The bird watchers, I do not want anybody in this place. My birds must, have peace and quiet. Joggers want a nice place they can jog. They want toilet stops to be built. Bird watchers say, 笑，不可以. Okay? The rock climbing people want to climb some of the rocks that were there. Nature lovers say, cannot, a lot of green down there. You destroy the green. And for the first 1-2 hours, everybody was shouting at everybody. Everybody was saying, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I believe. After 1-2 hours, the complaining stopped. Because everybody started hearing what everybody is saying. I talked to the minister after that over coffee. I said, hey, you're crazy. The first meeting some more, so much fighting. It's a good idea. I said, why is it a good idea? Because now everybody knows how selfish everybody is. He's right. Second meeting, very peaceful. Why? Because everybody had to compromise. What was the compromise? Okay, this part here got more birds. Okay, tell you what, you give it to me. That part got less birds, you go and cycle. Everybody started to compromise. Why? Because everybody already knew how selfish everybody is. Right? And you argue with them, no point, because everybody is strong. And then they go home and think about it. If I fight on like this, argue like this, I'll get nowhere. Right? And after a while, maybe the government decided, I'll just let it become a theme park instead. So they decided to compromise, because if they don't compromise, they might lose everything. I learned one thing from that gathering, okay? Whenever you have conservation issues, you have many views. It is good that everybody hears everybody's views. Why is it better than talking to them one by one? I also learned. If you talk to them one by one, everybody will have a conspiracy theory about what happened in the behind the scene. Oh yeah, the minister liked this group, that's why he purposely do this one. Whatever reason you explain, they won't listen. Why? They think you are cheating them, right? And everybody will complain. Put them all together, let them fight. I learned one thing from this one minister, right? I don't know whether he designed it that way or he was actually that smart, but it worked very well. And these days, we do it this way, okay? And it actually works very well. Let people speak their views. Don't control them. Let them shout at each other. After a while, they will see each other's points of view, right? I don't know how you do this in Hong Kong. Maybe if you don't do it this way, I strongly suggest you do it this way. It sounds chaotic and it sounds crazy, right? But actually it works, okay? But then you need, whoever is chairing this, you need a very calm person who doesn't get angry. That will tell everybody to calm down after a while. If you haven't tried this before in Hong Kong, I suggest you try it next time. I can almost guarantee you by the second meeting, it's more civil.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm conscious of the time now, and unless someone has a really burning question, then we might have to call it a stop now. We'd like to thank Peter again for the really engaging and certainly passionate speech and answers to the questions. I'll hand back to colleagues in the museum.
Really thank you for your attendance to this lecture, and I would like to have this chance to represent our museum to bring Professor a souvenir, a thank you gift for his brilliant lecture. Sorry， 大家都可以睇翻咁我哋館啦，同埋呢一個今日呢一個 lecture 生命科學學院同埋新亞書院佢哋咧都有一份問卷嘅。咁我哋館嗰個問卷咧，如果你哋唔介意咧，都可以用 QR code 嘅形式去繳交啊，咁幫我哋慳翻一啲嘅紙嘅。係啦，咁亦都麻煩你哋幫手填一填生命科學學院同埋新亞書院佢哋嗰邊嘅問卷。咁就我哋嚟緊下個禮拜將會亦都有好多同可持續發展相關嘅一啲嘅講座系列啦。咁希望大家都踴躍參加啦，同埋大家唔好唔記得咧，就係出門口咧記得抌印仔嚇，唔好嘥咗我哋啲禮物。多謝晒各位。